Hello there, welcome to Gardener's World. Thanks for joining me. On today's show, we've got a show all about Freemasonry from a guy who really ought to know, because he's a Freemason and he's a doctor, not a medical doctor. He lectures at, I think it's Liverpool University, isn't it?
Yeah, I do some there, yeah.
And his name is David Harrison, and he's written this new book, The Genesis of Freemasonry, which is very, very interesting because it highlights several things that most people don't actually normally get involved in. It certainly goes back a little bit further than the standard history that we have. David, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on the show.
Nice of you to come. So, you know, why another book on the genesis or the origin of Freemasonry?
Well, this was actually my PhD thesis, and when I started it back in 2000, 2001, there wasn't that many historical views on Freemasonry. It was all about Rosslyn Chapel and the Knights Templar, all the secret stuff. Yeah. So when I kind of approached a PhD supervisor, he said, "Oh, well, why not Freemasonry? You know, that sounds good. You know, could build something there." So it started from that, and we just ended up doing the thesis, and I finally finished that about 2007, I think it was. And from the very start of it, my supervisor said, well, this would be a great popular book. Rather than just have it academically published and, 500 copies goes around the libraries, then this could be, this could make a bit of an impact because it's quite, focused and particular on a subject matter that's not really been looked at academically before. Yeah.
Now, I mean, a lot of people that are watching this will be knowledgeable about conspiracy theories. They will know, a lot about the Freemasons. A lot of people watching it will say that Freemasons sacrifice babies and all kinds of things, and that you rule in the world, and that the top Grand Master somewhere is sat in a dark room with a white cat stroking it, ordering all you little minions around, and they'll be questioning, why we should trust a book. Forgive me. Yeah. That's written. Were you a Freemason when you started this?
I was, yeah. I first joined in about 1998 or 99, I think it was, and it was just something that I was invited into. I thought, well, I'll check it out, and it might not be for me.
You were invited.
Yeah. It was a few people kind of that I knew were involved in this particular lodge, and they said, oh, you might kind of like it, just give it a go. And I was interested in history, always interested in history, and I just finished my degree, which was in Welsh history, believe it or not. And I'd just got into the kind of secret thing, the 18th century kind of secret society stuff, and meeting in these taverns and all these kind of aristocracy. And so that kind of intrigued me. And the fact that it was still existing as well. And when I first went into the lodge, I kind of saw it through the eyes of a historian. It was typically Victorian, really, to me. So I like the history of it, really, and that's what drew me in. And then a few years later, when I was asked to do the PhD, I realised that there was all this history that had been written that wasn't really that good. It didn't answer the questions that I was asking, and so I thought, well, I'll do the research and try and come up with the answers. So that's what started it and blended in with the PhD.
And so, as a non-historian, Freemason, and a lot of the people watching this won't be Freemasons. They'll be questioning your background, because there is a lot of suspicion. Around Freemasonry. Yeah. And I know many Freemasons, and I know an awful lot of people who don't trust Freemasons and write those conspiracy books and the conspiracy films, and there'll be those questions there. Why should we trust the book that you've written on Freemasonry? You're a Freemason.
That's right.
You're not independent.
That's right.
Have you written this from an independent point of view?
I have, yeah.
How did you find that difficult?
It was really. With it being a PhD, you get these supervisors, these university professors,
they'll be
doctors.
Freemasons anyway.
Surprisingly, they weren't. They were. But there is. I did it at the University of Liverpool, and there is a University of Liverpool lodge, which I never knew anything about. It was that secret that I didn't even know. I didn't even know it was there. But my supervisors weren't Freemasons. They were looking at it. They kind of helped me with that view, really, with the independent view. And with it being a PhD, it had to be historically accurate in regards to looking at the documents. And
because a PhD has to go to like peer review, doesn't it?
yeah, that's right. And it was a Professor Simon Schaefer that actually was the external.
The Simon Schaefer.
From the University of Cambridge.
Yeah. Know the man.
Yeah, has he been on here? He's done a few TV things, I believe, because I can remember him telling me about them. But so yeah, he was interested in it because obviously there'd been so much rubbish about Freemasonry, and he wanted to see, what the truth was really, or as far as you could go, and he was also interested in Newton and Christopher Wren. Yeah. Which also feature in the book. Newton isn't a Freemason, or wasn't a Freemason, but Wren was. So there was these historical figures that had contributed to British society in the 17th and 18th century, that were involved in this.
So the fact that you've got a benchmark, a measurement here of a PhD, that's what you're saying is what makes this independent? Yeah.
It's looking at things from a historical perspective and looking at the actual archive material and the documents. I mean, you've still got to suggest things. You've got to say, well, there's no documents for that, but there's this and that.
So you have to take a few leaps.
Yeah. I think you've got to do that in every aspect of work, really.
You're kind of implying that historians or pseudo-historians of Freemasonry have, in the past, been taking too many leaps. What are some of the things that those leaps? Templars, for instance.
Yeah, the Templars, for example. I mean, I know a lot of medieval historians and Templar historians that straight away say there's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that the Templars escaped in the early 14th century and came to England or Scotland.
Ran up to Roslin.
Yeah, ran up to Roslin and
Battle of Bannockburn.
That's right. Helped Robert the Bruce out, and and
came down the hillside in their steeds.
That's right. That's
story.
right. Exactly.
And there's no evidence for that.
There's no evidence for that at all. There's no documents. It's just So
you're telling me that in the 15th century it wasn't the Freemasons that built Roslin Chapel?
Definitely not. No.
Oh
no.
It was the aliens then.
Oh, the aliens, definitely.
Okay. So the Templars is a no-no. The Freemasons didn't come from the Templars.
That's right. Yeah, there's no connection. There's no joint. These kind of writers, and the good books to read. I've got them at home. I've read them.
There's several of them on here.
Yeah, the great kind of you're in bed taking it easy on a cold winter's night. Fantastic.
See, I mean, I've got a lot of people that have been on here that do say this. Tim Wallace Murphy is one of them who writes books on Roslin, and he's a Freemason, and he writes Freemasonic books, and he'll say again and again and again, they came from the Templars, because the Templars were hiding this sacred knowledge of the Gnosis. And and it's sort of, it goes back through the Templars in time, back to Egypt, etc. All of that's fluff.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Without a doubt, yeah. There was an excellent book, actually, by a guy called Bob Cooper, who wrote The Roslin Hoax. Yeah.
Wasn't that from the same publisher, though, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Which just happens to be, sorry to get my conspiracy theorist head on, which just happens to be Lewis Masonic.
That's right, yeah. The same.
Which is a Freemasonic publisher.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so, again, why should we believe that Roslin Hoax and that Tim Wallace are wrong?
Well, at the same time, there's Lewis Masonic have published, stuff like that. Anyway, Roslin, Templars, that kind of stuff. So there's the two views at the moment, I think. There's this fantasy view, where I call it, or the speculative view, really, is probably the correct term for it, where, the Templars come down, rescue Robert the Bruce and Roslin Chapel.
What you're saying is from a scholarly point of view, there is no texts.
Yeah, there's no link.
No evidence. We've got no archaeological evidence, we've got no textual evidence.
Nothing, no.
No letters, no diaries, nothing to link from the 14th century to what you're pointing out, 17th century.
Yeah.
It's quite a gap, really.
Yeah, with the Templars, The Templars. There's no link. The only in the 19th century there was actual Masonic historians. They were actually publishing stuff saying, this Templars stuff that's been being discussed that we're linked to the Templars is rubbish, And they were even saying it then,
But they were also saying, of course, Freemasons were also saying that there was.
Yeah, that's right.
So even within Freemasonry, there's this argument.
That's right. That's right.
And a lot of them use the argument that there is a Templar degree.
Yeah, yeah.
What about that?
Well, that only comes from the 18th century. That developed from then. All the rituals, these extended rituals, like the Knights Templar and the Mark Mason degree and all of these kind of stuff. That's 18th century. And I even suggest in the book as well how those came about, and especially with the third degree, where there's some evidence to suggest that it was written by a guy called Dr. Jean Theophilus Desagulier.
Yeah.
Trying to say that when you've had a few pints. That's,
No.
it's terrible. He was basically I was going to say the father of modern Freemason, really, and I think he is in a way. He was a guy that came along. He was a French Huguenot by descent, and he came to London, and he was a natural philosopher. He was a friend of Isaac Newton. He was in the Royal Society, and he helped to mould modern Freemasonry. And when the Grand Lodge, the premier modern Grand Lodge, started in 1717 in London, that's when he got involved. And in the 1720s, he created this third degree. And hence we've got the 3 degrees in Freemasonry now. Before that, there was only 2, really. The apprentice and fellowcraft. And Desagulier, he came along, created this 3rd degree with a lot of imagery regarding Solomon's Temple and the cycles within Solomon's Temple and rebirth. And an influence on him was Sir Isaac Newton, who was into his alchemy.
Oh, yeah.
And he was obsessed with Solomon's Temple, as was Christopher Wren as well. So that's basically...
weren't the Freemasons obsessed with Solomon's Temple before these guys? Because this is what they tell us.
Yeah,
this is the tradition.
That's right. I suppose with Solomon's Temple, it was always, with it being mentioned in the Bible and being an important central symbol in the Bible, really.
The house of God.
Yeah, an architectural kind of embodiment of God, if you like, the divine word of God within architecture. So I suppose it was always important to them in that respect, but it wasn't until the 18th century that this degree ritual came about.
Right.
So
that's interesting. But really, I mean, in essence, I mean, we've only got like half a minute left before the break. But in essence, you're saying because of the lack of evidence, that means it's not true. But it could be true, couldn't it?
Yeah,
could it be true?
There is the thing with Freemasonry, with it being a secret society, there is a lack of evidence.
Yeah.
So, but
when just because Newton, doesn't have his name on a list of rolls anywhere, doesn't mean he wasn't a Freemason. Because I've done some research on various people like Jules Verne, etc.
Oh yeah.
And the influences that the guy had around him and the things that he wrote and did
is amazing. Yeah.
It's like it points to the fact that the bloke was a Freemason,
or
was highly influenced by them.
Yeah.
But you've got French Revolution going off, and you've got all kinds of different. So a lot of the roles were destroyed or hidden because of politics.
That's right.
Could it be that Newton had a similar? But what we're getting is that this is a book about the actual real evidence that exists, and it's not about making the leaps that we were talking about before the break, where we're saying that just because there aren't texts to say, and the Knights Templar rested themselves in Roslin Chapel and built this wonderful thing there, just because those texts aren't there, you're saying that means it's not necessarily true, or do you think that it may be possible? Give somebody a glimmer of hope out there, because there's 1,000 books all based on that theory.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably sell anyway, because the majority of them are good reads anyway. So
you think that there is no link,
definite no link whatsoever.
So what is the origin of Freemasonry? If it's not in the Knights Templars who got it from Jerusalem digging below the temple, and before that Egypt, and before that wherever. If it's not that, is it just simply that a bunch of stonemasons wanted to set up some kind of, union?
That's it, really. Yeah, the Freemasons, Freestone Masons, were like a guild.
What's a Freestone Mason as opposed to a Mason?
A Freestone Mason is someone that works in limestone and which is
So they do all the nice, pretty faces and
yeah,
flowers and
and it's a bit more kind of upmarket than the sandstone. I mean, most cathedrals and the medieval cathedrals and medieval churches are built out of sandstone, because there's a lot of it around in Britain.
And so, what's a speculative mason?
Well, the speculative Freemasons, they started around about the very late 1500s and the 1600s, and you get a lot of the old lodges, the guild lodges, kind of basically dying off a bit. You know,
These aren't the lodges as we see them today, are they? They're not.
No, they're
not
different. Yeah.
Ordinary people who can't touch, do anything with stone. These were real stonemasons.
These were real stonemasons.
And they were set up at places like cathedrals and churches and...
Yeah, or they'd travel around a lot as well. They'd work on a cathedral probably for about 40, 50 years, and then that one would be finished, and then they might have to go off and repair another one, so there'd be a bit more work 20 miles down the road or something like that. By the time you get to the late 1500s, and especially the 1600s, the 17th century, you get a lot of people entering these lodges, for special reasons. And there's an incident of that in Warrington, which is where I'm from. There was a guy called Elias Ashol, who's quite famous.
The Ashmolean Museum,
That's
Oxford,
right,
yeah.
That's the one. And he actually was fighting in the Civil War in the 1640s.
Yes.
By 1646, there's the parliamentarians are getting the upper hand and have almost won the first stage of the war.
Yeah.
Ashmole was fighting as a royalist, and he was in Worcester, in the siege of Worcester. And they lost that battle, and he kind of scarpered, and he headed up towards Cheshire, where his first wife's father still resided in a place called Smallwood, which is still there to this day. His first wife had died, and he kind of resided with his father-in-law really to heal himself, I suppose, because he just lost his mother on the way back. The land was ravaged with war.
Yeah.
The royalist cause was finished in their eyes at that time, that was about July, and then by the time you get to October in 1646, he's entering a lodge in Warrington.
Right.
And
he's obviously not a stonemason, so...
That's right. And he's been made a mason with a parliamentarian called Henry Mainwaring, who's a cousin of his father-in-law. So it's quite strange that you've got this stern royalist and this stern parliamentarian.
And is this the earliest that we've got?
In England, yeah.
In England?
Yeah.
So we've got earlier elsewhere?
Yeah, in Scotland, there's a couple of old lodges, one particular lodge in Edinburgh that has minutes dating from I think it's 1599. And they were a stonemasons lodge, and they had started kind of accepting these local bigwigs, if you like.
Right.
And so you see the same thing going on. These stonemason lodges are kind of accepting these people that aren't masons, and they're the speculative masons that are coming in, as opposed to the operative masons. So
this could have been stained glass window unions or anything that developed into what we've got today.
That's right. The carpenters or the wheelwrights or the difference with the masons was that they were very, very popular anyway. Because they built these cathedrals and these churches, they built these houses of God, if you like.
Now that opens up another question, because modern Freemasonry, of course, there are a few sides to it. There's the political side and the let's have a drink, pal side, and get me off of that parking fine.
That parking
side.
fine.
And then there's the other side, which is like the esoteric side, where people are kind of drawn to that side because they want to know a bit more, and they think that there's a secret to living and to the universe and to the divine or the grand architect or great architect or whatever you want to call it. So there's that two sides, as one Freemason always said to me, is the political side and the esoteric. Yeah. But you're going back to that period there where in what you call modern Freemasonry, the start of that, where they're really into the Temple of Solomon, they're really into sacred geometry, etc. But back to the original stonemasons that you're talking about, who were the ones building the cathedrals and had been for an awful long time and had got that knowledge from somewhere, crusades, etc., etc. they were using sacred geometry, obviously, to build those buildings.
That's right.
You can go and measure that now and say,
Yeah.
this is in the divine proportions of
That's right.
this Vitruvian man on the ground.
Chester Cathedral or wherever, or yeah.
So they had a kind
like
of
churches.
sacred knowledge already.
Yeah.
Is that why they were so popular?
That's probably why, yeah, because they were building, these divine buildings, the houses of God, basically.
Yeah.
Sacred buildings. And one of the reasons why in the Civil War, the English Civil War in particular, that they kind of like became really popular was because they had still had these rules, basically, where when they opened a lodge, it was a sacred space. So, and you weren't allowed to talk about politics or religion, as you still aren't today. You know, so hence you get these two big figures coming in. This Elias Ashol royalist, Henry Mainwaring parliamentarian.
Can you see why conspiracy theorists jump all over this stuff?
Oh yeah.
You can also see
rife for
it's rife.
Rich pickings for.
You've got the American Civil War going off, for instance, and you've got battles being fought, ordinary people being killed left, right, and centre. And then the officers going off into a mobile lodge from both sides, deciding on the maybe
the outcome of the
battle next day. You can see why people jump at conspiracies.
Oh yeah.
Because there's conspiracies.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There has to be.
I think anywhere where there's potential secrecy, there's conspiracies. Or a conspiracy theory or a
unelected officials deciding our future.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean,
you're a Freemason, is that right?
Oh no. I mean, one of the things with Freemasonry when it started off was that it was democratic.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, when it was first founded, the premier modern lodge in 1717. I say modern as well because in 1751 there was an ancient Grand Lodge that offshot.
Which is spelt wrong.
Yeah, that's right, with a T instead of the C. Yeah. And at the very beginning, for the first 3 or 4 years, it was elected Grand Masters, drawn from the actual, lodge members, Grand Lodge members. Yeah. Desagulier himself was a Grand Master for a year, and 2 other Grand Masters were, basically drawn from the common men. There was a guy called Anthony Payne, who was a bookshop owner,
but then it changed.
It changed.
And the Royals came
Anthony
back.
Sayer, I should say.
Sayer, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
The Royals came back.
The Royals, all the aristocracy were
back.
invited back, and you get the Duke of Montague and the Duke of Wharton, all being invited in and being Grand Masters. And you see this influx of the aristocracy, and then you see the royal family joining. There was Frederick the Prince of Wales joined, and you get this influx of the aristocracy and the royalty and the democracy from Freemasonry seems to have been basically put on the side somewhere.
There's power battles going off there, isn't there?
Yeah. So you can see where the conspiracy theorists can say, there's something a bit
I don't
missing
think
there.
it's too big a leap, personally.
Yeah. This is it. Yeah. For people that aren't Freemasons, it's like,
That's dodgy.
Yeah.
But getting back to the point, the early stonemasons were building sacred geometry into those buildings. They had to get that knowledge from somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, it's assumed by a lot of historians that I know that they got a lot of that mathematics on building the arch and all those other things from the period of the Crusades when we were over there.
Yeah.
Now you can see why pseudo-historians or Templar historians point to Templars.
Yeah.
Because obviously, ever since the demise of the Templars, there's been stories about them.
Oh, yeah.
And they were supposed to have got this so-called secret from below the Temple of Solomon. Can you see why that's the case?
Yeah,
it kind of makes sense.
The thing with the Templars, you see, is that they're a very romantic, historical bunch of people. Bunch of men, really. These warriors with the Red Cross and escorting people to the Holy Land.
And their brothers were the Cistercians.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that were highly responsible for an awful lot of the building projects that were going off in Europe post-Crusades.
Yeah, I mean, you get this kind of...
See, there's
I can see where people kind of say, oh, well, they could have influenced them and secret society going on in the medieval times, and then of course you get this kind of Holy Grail aspect to it as well, where the Templars have discovered some secret.
Yeah.
And
the little kiddies of Jesus and Mary.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it can go either way. You see, when you start looking at the Templars, there's such a great historical group of knights. That they create this romance, and so you can develop these romantic views quite easily.
But there's no actual odd evidence. It is purely supposition.
That's right. I mean, the Holy Grail. That's a story that will probably be with us forever. It's a story that was linked to older sources. Celtic sources even. Yeah. And it's been adopted by different people for different things, So, so the Templars are, they're a great kind of historical bunch of people to write on because they're so romantic, and it's boys' own stuff.
Enigmatic,
basically.
because the evidence is thin.
Basically, yeah.
Now, one of the things that's in your book, just to let's get a little bit more modern then, and let's ignore the Templars now, because we've covered the Templars, is a man that I've always been fascinated by, and a lot of people will be, because he's been involved in a lot of different secret societies, or implicated in things like the Rosicrucians, etc. John Dee.
Oh, John Dee.
John Dee.
John Dee, yeah.
Fascinating character. We've got about half a minute left. But, just introduce John Dee to people and we'll talk a bit more.
Well, John Dee was a magician, basically. He was searching for lost knowledge in the Tudor period, really, the late Tudor period. And he claims to have found it. So,
found what?
The lost knowledge.
Oh, so after the break, what we'll be doing is talking to the author of Genesis of Freemasonry, David Harrison, on the lost knowledge that Dr. John Dee, and Dr. John Dee, he was a magician, but he was also, he had a great library. He worked for the Queen. Necromancer.
Alchemist.
Dr. John Dee, obviously had his friend Edward Kelly, and the guy who could contact the dead for him, and all this necromancy. And it's claimed that he raised the dead, and various other things. And it's also claimed that he was a spy for Queen Elizabeth. Yeah.
Again, he's an excellent historical figure. That's just the romance that he can attract is unbelievable. Because he did so much. And he survived with it as well, and this is in a period where, especially when King James came to the throne in 1603, where witches started to be persecuted, and he was still there doing his magic, and
he had too many things on too many people.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
But why is John Dee involved in a book on the origins of Freemasonry?
Well, John Dee was. You mentioned about Edward Kelly. And raising the dead, you're probably familiar with this. They supposedly raised a dead person from St Leonard's churchyard in Welton-le-Dale near Preston. Yes. This was supposedly a successful raising. It's been written about for over the 100 years. So there's a great book in the 19th century about him. With great prints where he's actually raising this person from the graveyard. Fantastic stuff. And he used this ritual. And the ritual, when I looked at the actual documents, it was very similar to the third degree in Freemasonry.
Right.
And there's all kinds of different things in the third degree Masonic raising degree, as they call it, where basically the Freemason is put down into a figurative grave, and they attempt to pull him up, and on the third time they successfully raise him from this grave. And it's all about the Mason being reborn and into a world of enlightenment and knowledge, and
he comes into the room in darkness.
That's right. That's right.
And is risen in light.
Yeah. That's the one. Very similar to the raising.
And you're associating that with this necromancy of John Dee.
Yeah.
As in that he didn't really do it, and that this is symbolic. It's
symbolic. I mean, it's hard to say if John Dee did it or not. He's an amazing historical character. He definitely knew, when I mentioned before about the search for lost knowledge, he was always searching for anything that might kind of give him knowledge about the universe.
Yeah.
And
I mean, an extensive library, didn't he?
He did.
Collected from all
That's
over the
right.
place. I mean,
And part of that library ended up with Elias Ashol. So there's a link there, you see.
yeah.
So, and Elias Ashol was an alchemist. He actually looked at John Dee's work and, tried to do all kinds of things. Because being involved in alchemy isn't just about turning base metal into gold. It's about finding eternal life, basically. It's
looking for the elixir.
That's right. That's right. And this is what Ashmole was searching for. He reckoned in John Dee's library the answers were there, and he was in contact with John Dee's son. So there's a link there anyway, and it's all about search for lost knowledge, hidden knowledge, and this is a theme within the Masonic ceremonies, the Masonic rituals, the search for lost knowledge.
And did you find it? Have the Freemasons found it? And are you going to tell us?
I don't think they did find it. It's all about symbolism. It's about words and symbols that basically, to me anyway. It's about finding the knowledge within yourself. It's as if the knowledge is already in there, and you've got to kind of work it out somehow. You've got to. Again, it's pretty similar to the Holy Grail story, where only the purest can find it. And when they do find it, you don't really find out what it was. Glowing lights and things.
Is it a plate? Is it a cup? Or is it Superman?
Yeah, that's right.
It serves only those who serve it.
So I think it's the secrets, the lost knowledge is within yourself, and you've got to kind of, search.
So this is a very Gnostic principle that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that Freemasonry is accused of being, especially by Bible Belt America, which is where a lot of the real harder-edged conspiracy theorists against Freemasonry comes from, is the Christians, the fundamentals. And they accuse Freemasonry of being a religion. And you can see why. When, you have your symbols and you've got the big G in the middle, which they take as God, the great architect, etc. What is all that about?
Yeah.
Is it a religion?
It's not a religion. It's a society really that's anti-religious, really, because any faith can join in theory. So you've just got to believe in the grand architect, the supreme being, God, or whatever.
And this is where it becomes a blurred area. Why it's easy for them to jump in, because you say you've got to believe in a grand architect, that somebody made all of this. So that rules out Richard Dawkins, the greatest atheist that we've got. But you also have your rituals and your rules. Now, religion means to be tied to something.
Yeah.
You can see where I'm going?
Yeah, definitely.
Not a religion then?
It's, I suppose people that aren't Freemasons can think, oh, well, there's something a bit, there's something a bit dodgy on that one. Of course, it's got the ritualistic appeal, which, ritual is always tied in with the religion, whether it's Wicca or Christianity or wherever. There's always a ritual there, because rituals are about the initiated. We know this. You come and join us, and we'll show you. So it's that kind of thing, really. So I can see how people can view it as a religion, because it's ritualistic. It's behind closed doors, and in the 18th and 19th centuries, there was because Freemasons used to meet on nights of the full moon in various little country villages. There's evidence to suggest that the local population was like, what are they up to? They're up to something dodgy, and you get a bit of kind of suspicion going on. And in the book I discussed that, where people have actually talked about, they think we're witches, we're raising the devil at night when the moon's full,
sacrificing kids.
Yeah, when really they were only meeting on the moon when the moon's full, because it gave off the light. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like the Lunar Society. Yeah.
So why did the Catholics ban it?
That's a good question. I think that's about power again. There was a couple of people, a couple of Freemasons in the 18th century that are quite well known. There's a guy called John Cousteau, who was kind of captured by the Inquisition, and in Portugal. He was in Portugal, I believe, and he founded his own lodge, and the Inquisition knocked on his door, dragged him away, and he was like tortured, you know. And he ended up
treated like a good anti-Catholic.
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah. And he was kind of he managed to get away. I think it was to do with some British consulate turned up and kind of, you know, said a few words for him and managed to get him off. And he wrote this book in the 18th century about his tortures, and you know, which was quite gruesome. And then there was another guy in the I think it was as late as the 1790s, who was friends with Count St Germain, who you've probably come across. Yeah,
whoever he was.
Whoever he was, yeah. Who was an alchemist as well. Yeah. He was into his alchemy, and associated with Freemasonry.
And every other secret society on the planet.
Yeah,
just about.
Yeah. And this other guy who knew Count St Germain and Casanova, he ended up being captured by the Inquisition, and
so you're saying is that
you know,
they built up kind of a bit of evidence against Freemasonry, or thought that Freemasonry was working against them?
Yeah. I think it's about power again, you know, it's about what are these guys doing, you know.
So are the Freemasons, you know, were they working on power trip? Were they trying to undermine the Catholic Church, the royals, etc.?
I think what was happening in the 18th century, because there was a lot of the Catholic threat in Britain, the Jacobites, for example.
Yeah.
There was an element of, you know, we're Protestant, and you know we're kind of symbolising this kind of English, Georgian, Hanoverian ideal. So there was elements of that during the 18th century. Of course, it was. You know, you do get this kind of Jacobite, Hanoverian thing going on, Catholic, Protestant thing.
A great surge of secret societies at that point as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Across Europe.
Yeah, that's right. They pop up all over Europe, in France, Germany, wherever, Italy even, Spain.
Because you can't openly revolt.
Yeah.
This is a period of great revolt, isn't it?
Yeah.
Across Europe.
That's right.
You can't openly do that.
The age of revolution.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So. I mean, revolution starts in secrecy with people saying, "Oh, I'm fed up of him," and you know, what do you reckon of this Prime Minister we've got?
So the Catholics kind of basically outlawed it because they saw it as a place where secrets can be talked about, a bit like why we shut down, you know, coffee shops.
Yeah, that's right.
Shut them down because people are talking and we don't want them to do that.
That's right.
Stop at home and sit and watch the internet and read the filth that we feed them.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, with John Cousteau, for example, just going back to the Inquisition, his book reveals that these torturers were constantly saying, "Give us the ritual, tell me what happens behind closed doors, what's going on."
Right, so they were fearful.
Yeah.
Right.
So that shows that the Inquisition was, I mean, that's what
why
the Inquisition
reaction was
for.
so great.
Yeah.
Because the fear was so strong.
That's right.
Because it wasn't just the Freemasons they banned loads of them.
Yeah, I mean,
picked on that.
Going back into the medieval period, the Inquisition was there to get rid of heretics.
Absolutely.
And these heretics were not just witches, or they were people that were disagreeing with
absolutely. Dogma and doctrine of the church.
Yeah.
So, does Freemasonry make you a better man?
I believe it can do. You know, there's it's what I was saying before about the you know, search for hidden knowledge, and it's deep inside, and you've got to find it. And yeah, you know, I've met some great people in Freemasonry, but then again, I've met some people that, you know, are obviously in it for themselves, or you know, not very nice. You know, there's good and bad everywhere, really. Whatever activity you get involved in, whatever career you go for.
Why just men? Why can't my wife join?
Well, there is a women's Freemasons. I mean,
why can't you all be together?
I would love that, because I think it'd be great.
Only because of the ritual. That's the only reason that you'd be interested.
The
bearing of the breast. That's the only reason.
The bearing of the breast. You know, I mean, I'm sure they could get around that.
You could sell that
somehow.
one to them, couldn't you?
Yeah. I think I might put something together later.
So there is a female. Was it co-masonry? It's called.
Yeah. yeah. And they've been going since I think it's the 1920s. So,
But they're not official, are they?
I don't think they're recognised by the United Grand Lodge at the moment. It's
bunch of stuffy men.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm all for getting women involved. You know, I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
I could live with that, I think.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Unless the wife turns up and stops you drinking.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's one thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good way for Freemasonry to go, really. You know.
So, if you had, you know, if all the people that are watching this were thinking, oh, well, I might go and join the Freemasons, give me a little bullet point list of positives for it.
Positives for it would be no matter if there is good and bad in the lodge that you join, there's always going to be some guys that are great and that'll help you out. They certainly helped me out with that. You know, with documents and things and point them in the right direction. And, you know, there is a good point to it with the people always going about the charities and things like that, which is good. And
the esoteric learning.
And the esoteric learning, the search for hidden knowledge.
Thing on the self is a good mirror.
Yeah, yeah.
So Freemasonry on one side of it, can be a good mirror for the self.
Yeah.
And it's got some ancient teaching in there, because it did actually, like you say, Elias Ashol and they did go around and collect sacred knowledge.
That's right.
So that's how it's kind of crept in. So if you want to know more, the genesis of Freemasonry, it's a good kind of hard-hitting historical work.